In the last video, we created separate pages for the upload page, which is this one, and then the edit page, which is this one right here. And we also added a function so that if we were to refresh this page from the edit without uploading, then it would just load a default file. That way we can test any changes that we make without having to upload a file at this page first. And then we also added this audio waveform using the wavesurfer library, and it's interactive, so you can click on it and it'll seek to different parts of the video. Continuing on from the previous video, in this video we're going to connect the seeking of the audio waveform here. It does work with the video, but it doesn't sync up with the time here, the current time of the video. And then we also don't show the full duration of the video. So we'll make sure that the audio waveform seeking is synced up with the time here and the video over here. We'll center and we'll end up with this. So here we have the playback controls, and you can see that the current time is 18 seconds out of 55. And as I seek on this audio waveform, then the time is updated over here. All right, let's get started. Okay, to start, we need to sync up this audio waveform. So as I seek it, it does seek the video, and you can see that it's updating the video here, but it's not updating the timer here. So it should be, if I'm towards the end, it should be whatever the current time is over the full duration of the video, but that's not updating. If I do play, it does play from where this time is. So that's good, and I pause it, it works just as expected. And then there's this slider here that you can seek as well. It does seek the video, but we already have this seek enabled down here, so we don't need another one. So I'm gonna simplify the playback controls here and just leave basically the play button and this timer, but we need to also sync up the time with the audio waveform. And this is all in the edit page. So I'm gonna pull up cursor with the edit page as the context. And I'm just going to describe what I'm seeing. My edit page has a slider in the playback controls, and the audio waveform also has the ability to seek the video. I only need one of these, and I would like to keep the audio waveform, so we don't need the slider in the playback controls. The playback controls shows the current time of the video and the full duration. But the current time doesn't update when I play the video or I seek it by clicking on the audio waveform. And the full duration doesn't display the duration of the video. It just shows 00. If I interact with the audio waveform, it does appear to be in sync with the video, but the current time does not update. Can you please sync the current time display with the current time of the video? And make sure that the full duration of the video is displayed next to the current time. Once you remove the slider in the playback controls, you can center the playback controls above the audio waveform. I just made some edits to what I previously said, but it's basically the same thing. And these prompts, I'll summarize them at the end once I get them to work, and I provide them in the description so that you can use them if you want to follow along. So I'm just going to submit that, and I made sure that it is agentic and that I'm using Claude 3.7 Sonnet. So I don't have any changes right now in my source control, so any changes that cursor makes, I'll be able to see them in here as well. So it's going to start by removing the slider, syncing the time display, and centering the controls just like I asked. We made some changes, and if I just browse through them, I can see it looks like it's not too many changes. It does remove the slider here, and then let's see what else it did. So it's summarizing the changes that it's made. It removed the timeline from the playback controls. Since I want to use the audio waveform for seeking, that's correct. Let's check if it made, let me just refresh. Let's check if it made these changes before I read the summary. So if I click play, it is updating the current time, and it does show the full duration of the video, which is great. That's awesome. And then if I pause it and then I seek, it doesn't update the time. But what if I press play from after I seeked it? So I'm gonna seek it toward the end, so it should be above 50. If I click play, so it does update it once I click play. So it looks like the action of seeking the video is updating the video in real time, but it's not updating the time over here in the playback controls until I actually click play. So that's a minor fix, but it did fix everything else, which is awesome. It didn't center the playback controls. I guess this whole row right here is the playback controls, but what I wanted to do is to center these buttons, but it's not that important. I'll just worry about it later. So regarding the current time display, which is this right here, it says that it added an event listener for Wavesurfer's audio process event to update the current time while playing. So that explains why it's only updating when it's actually playing here instead of when it's seeking. It does say it updates the current time when seeking in the waveform, but that's not true. We need to fix that. And then it adds additional duration updates in multiple places so that it's always set. And that looks like it's working really well because it does set the duration. And then it just made some minor fixes. It does say that it centered the playback controls, but I just didn't describe it well enough, I guess. Let me look into the file to see the actual changes that it made. So we're within the edit page and I can see when it initializes the wavesurfer in this effect hook, this is where it updates the duration in the display as long as the wavesurfer object is ready. It sets the duration, and that's the duration state variable. So it sets it according to the video reference, which is good. So I'll approve that one. And then, so while it's seeking, this is the video element itself, and we can see that this was already here. And depending on the progress, it sets the current time of the video. And that was working as expected, right? So this line, which was already here, is working. But this current time, it's using the same value that it's setting the video to. It is being updated. So the current time is being updated as a state variable, but maybe this just isn't listening properly. So that looks good. Down here, when it's playing, it's actually setting the current time according to what the current time of the video is. Up here, it's setting it according to the progress that we've made and the duration. I wonder, since I've set it above here, if I were to set the current time to the current time of the video. Let me try refreshing, and let's see. No, that didn't fix it. So it must be this current time. I left what the cursor has suggested, but that looks good. I don't think the issue is there. Okay, and in this same effect hook, which, does it take any? It does run anytime there's an update to the video file, but in this same effect hook, it's setting the duration of the video when the metadata is loaded. This loaded metadata handler is running in response to this event that's happening. So it's setting the duration once that video metadata is loaded, which is good. And then it's doing it again right here. Maybe this one isn't necessary. Let's comment it out and let's see what happens. If I refresh, it does update the duration. So I don't think I need this one just because I don't want to update the duration again. So I will actually reject this one here. And what else is there? Here's the formatting time. It's just returning the format that it finds to be the best to display. And then the playback controls, it added this, but it didn't work. So I'm just going to reject that part. Let's see what happens to the display. Yeah, nothing changed. We just need to prompt it better so that it could display those playback controls better. And then here, the time display, the styling, let's just remove that. This is where it deleted the slider, so I'm going to accept that. So I looked through all of the changes and I didn't see where this current time was listening for the current time according to the state variable. So let me look for it. So I'm happy with the changes that it made. Everything looked good. So I'm just going to stage them. That way, any further changes from cursor, they will be under here, not staged. And then I can easily review them. And then if I look at the changes that it did make, I can see that whenever I seek on the wavesurfer, then it should set the current time to the same as the video. The video is being set right here, so there's no reason why the current time shouldn't be set here as well. You can see the video is updating. And the current time is causing the element to re-render, and you can see this element right here is listening for those changes. So this should be re-rendering anytime the current time changes. So what I need to look at is see if there are, maybe I can add a console log right here, line 132. I can add a console log to show me that time. So let me go back over here, refresh it. Let me pull up my console. Let me clear it out. If I seek, so it's not console logging. Is this even running at all? Let me see. Let me try here. So this, I wonder if this isn't even an event that's happening. So this event ready is firing because I can see wavesurfer is ready, but I wonder if seeking doesn't appear to be firing. Let me just add that one, and then for audio process, I'll add audio process here. Let me refresh. If I seek, that one's not firing. If I press play, so audio process is firing. So how is it that when I seek on here, it updates the current video? Let me ask cursor. So let me pull it up and let me prompt it with, when I click on the wavesurfer, it does change the time of the video, but it doesn't update the current time state variable. I added a console log statement to see if the seek event is firing for the wavesurfer, but this console log is never shown. The other events, such as ready and audio process, are being triggered, and I can see the console log statement from those events. If the seek event isn't being fired, then how is it that the video is synced up to the audio waveform whenever I click on the wavesurfer element? Let's submit that with the edit page as context. And it's just going to check how wavesurfer handles click interactions. In the meantime, let me browse through the code to see if there's anything else that I can see. So it looks like it made more changes than I expected. But let's see if it works before I read the summary. Wavesurfer is ready. Direct time sync. So now it is working. That's great. All right, let's look at the code to see what changes it made. What if I press play? Will it play as normal? Yep, we're still getting the audio process, and it's still playing the video. Okay, awesome. Whatever it did work. So let's just go through it. So it started generating an explanation for the response, but maybe because I collapsed this little window, it stopped. So it didn't add a ton. But one thing we do know is that it did add a direct click event listener to the waveform container, and that updates the time. But I did want to know the answer to the question I had about how is it that the video is getting updated. Maybe I'll see it if I just keep looking in the code. But here we have the original seek function. Let me zoom in. And seeking via event. So this, let me collapse that. It is showing, it's the same thing as I had before. And then here's the click listener that's being added to the waveform container. So it's setting the current time just like this one did up here. But for some reason, this seek isn't being fired. So I don't think that there's a seek event that wavesurfer is firing. And then here's the handler. So whenever I click on that container, it just sends this function, which is just setting the current time. And then it cleans up this event listener that it added. What else does it do? And then it just re-added the styling, which I can just delete if I want. Let me actually rerun this prompt because I did want to see an explanation for my question on how is it that the video is synced up to the audio waveform, because I don't see it anywhere else. Okay, so I couldn't find where else the waveform would update the time of the video. Let me see if I can search for it. It's only during the audio process that it updates, that it sends it right here. The seek somehow is still updating the video. Okay, since this is working, I want to store these changes, but I don't want to stage them because although it works, it seems a little hacky because we're adding a form click on the waveform container instead of using any events that are within the wavesurfer reference. So I'm going to stash these just in case I do want to keep them. Actually, before I run that, I do want to stage my changes. I do want to commit my changes. So I'm just going to ask it to summarize these changes into a commit message. Please summarize your changes into a get commit message. Some of these changes won't actually be staged, so I just need to edit the commit message. Let me copy this. And here's the commit message that I wrote, so I just need to remove this one because I'm not actually going to commit the click event listener. So this one is okay. It does update the current time based on the audio process event. It did fix the display to show the correct video duration. And then it didn't center them, so let me delete that one. So this will be the commit message that I use. I'll just paste it and commit it. So now I only have the changes that I had before, this hacky solution. Let me just get rid of these, I don't need that. And this I will stash in case I want to go back to it because it does work. Now I go back into here, into cursor. I'm going to modify this. Actually, I'm just going to restore checkpoint here. And it'll discard all my changes, so let's see what it does. And let me submit it because I do want it to answer this question on how the video is getting updated when I seek, if the seek event isn't being triggered. Oh, and I forgot to use an agentic model. So let me go back, change that, and now do it again. So the first thing it's going to do is look at the wavesurfer documentation, which is great. I should have actually added that as the context because I'm sure that Cursor has indexed the documentation for wavesurfer. So I could just add it as context, but let me run this. It should find the documentation. So it found that because I'm actually using a newer version of wavesurfer, it's the interaction event that's being triggered instead of the seek event. So it looks like it changed the interaction, or it changed the event from seek to interaction, but it also added another event listener for any time updates. I wonder if we even need this second one. Let's see if it works. Let me refresh. If I click around, so it is updating the time, but it's not correct. They're all showing it's not working well. So let me remove this one and then let me accept these changes. So it's triggering the interaction and then it's based on the same value that's being applied to the video is what's being used to update the current time. Let me try now. 11, 10, 12, 15, 24. That could be right because that would be around there. 25 is roughly halfway, right? But it moves this cursor all the way to the right. Let me refresh the console logs. Let's play from here to see what happens. So it immediately went to the end because that's where the cursor was. If I move it here, it says 17 as the current time, 17:06, but in the interaction detected it says 18.6. But then the new time is completely different. So where is it getting the new time from? So let's see, a console log, interaction detected, and that's progress. That's actually, progress is the time now. So it looks like we don't even need this video duration. Let me try setting this to just progress, and then this one as well to just progress, And then I only need to console log the progress. So if I refresh it and I click, 27 seconds, that's about right. And that's halfway through the video. 53 seconds, if I click play, it plays the rest of the video. If I click early on, 10 seconds in, then it plays from there. Okay, so it's working now. So it looks like this event is sending progress, and that's the time according to the full duration. So it already takes into account the full duration of the video within here. And now it's working. So I can actually delete this one, delete that one. And I never needed this update, but let me uncomment it to see what it does. I think that's what made it buggy earlier. If I click, how many events is it firing? If I click once, time updated, interaction detected, time updated again. Yeah, that's because this one's not needed. If I refresh, let me try interacting, click once, only one update. Okay, that's good. Awesome, it's working just as we want it to. I can get rid of this console log, and okay, not a whole lot changed. This is the only change that we've introduced. We basically just changed the name of the event. Let me move it down here. So we just replaced the seek event with interaction. That's basically the only thing that we did. And then this progress is the actual progress. We don't need to calculate based on the duration of the video. And that got it to work. So instead of writing a separate commit message for this, since I haven't pushed these changes to my GitHub, I can still do a commit amend, and then it'll just be part of this same commit message. And I'll just save it and close it. And now we don't need the changes that we had saved in the stash. So I can just do git stash drop to delete that one. And then I can run git stash list to see if there's anything. Okay, there's nothing there. Good. All right, great. So we synced up seeking here with the actual video, although that was already working, and the time right here. We fixed the time display. Okay, and if I just look at the summary of the changes that it made, I can see that it updated the event from seek to interaction, because in the recent version of Wavesurfer, Wavesurfer now sends an interaction event. And then it does answer my question on why the video was still seeking. So apparently Wavesurfer was still updating the internal time position, and the video was syncing with Wavesurfer through the media element connection. So if I pull up Wavesurfer, and when it's initialized, you can see that the media type is the video, and then here's the media that it's referencing. So I guess the library for Wavesurfer, it already has that feature where it'll stay in sync with the video. But because the seek event wasn't being fired by version 7 of Wavesurfer, then the React state was never being updated. But now that we fixed all those issues, our app is working as we expect. Okay, and the last thing that we want to do is center these playback controls so that they're just right in the center of the app. If we take a look at our application file structure, we can see that we have multiple files, and this file structure is from before we had these edit pages. We had one React component where we had both the edit and the upload rendering logic, and so we had this video uploader component, but now we've separated it out. So what I'll do is I'll ask Cursor to separate out the CSS for my edit page and the upload page from this one single file, and then I will also organize the structure a little bit better. And for that, I'm going to start a new chat. That way, once I'm done with all the changes, I can just ask it to summarize all the changes in this thread under one commit message. So let me just add all of these files as context. Okay, so I've basically added all of these files, all the files under pages, and then all of these here. And I'm going to tell it to structure the project in a standard way. My simple React application has multiple JavaScript and CSS files, and they are not organized very well. Additionally, the CSS for my edit page and my upload page is in the video uploader CSS file. Can you please organize the file structure of my React application in a standard way? That looks good, so I'm just going to submit that. And just while it's running, I make sure that there's no changes here. Okay, so it's looking at the current structure, and it's going to create a more organized structure, and it gives me a plan. It's going to create a components directory. Yeah, that's good. Create a styles directory, and then organize the CSS by component and the page, and then have the pages in their own directory. So it's going to run this command to create two different directories. One is source styles. So within here, it's going to create styles, and it's going to create components. So I'll just run that. And I can see these appeared over here on the left. Okay, so now it's creating separate CSS files, and it looks like it's creating them all within here. This looks like this app.css is just going to be a copy of this other one. It's just moving it into that folder. It could have also just ran the terminal command to move the file, but it chose instead to create the CSS file. Same with the index CSS. Now it's going to create separate CSS files for the edit page and the upload page. And it's updating the import statements in the JavaScript files to reflect the new changes. You can see now it's going into the styles directory. It looks like it's going to do that for every JavaScript file. So it's done the index.js and the app.js. It just finished the upload.js. So you can get a lot done by prompting cursor if you're detailed in what you want, and if it's complicated, if it's a complex step that you want it to take, then the more detail, the better. You want to be as clear as you can. I mean, this is a very simple step, a very simple request. So it shouldn't have any trouble running this, but you can imagine if you wanted to prompt it just like in a single shot, have it build out an application, then if you were to explain it to someone, then you would explain it in a conversational way. And that's how I try to prompt the LLM, in like a conversational way, because that's how you would explain it to a person, right? And so it's easier to understand. It's easier for you to be able to explain things in a conversational way rather than trying to create a specification that maybe you're not used to writing. Okay, so it's going to create a simple component. It looks like this button it's going to create, and it's using old React syntax. But anyways, it's creating a button, and the idea is that components that are used throughout the app, like say a button, if I want them to be stylized in a systematic way across the entire application, then I can just reuse this component. And so I would import this button wherever I need it, in like a separate page or another parent component. And then here's the CSS for that button. And now it's going to remove the old CSS. So I'm just going to approve that. I actually approved it without looking to see that it created everything else. Oh yeah, it did. The upload page CSS and the edit page CSS. Here it is. Okay, so now it's going to delete that one. That's good. Now the index.css, delete it. So it's going to confirm the new structure by running this terminal command. It seemed to run, so let me try again. Okay, so it got a list of the file structure, and it confirms that it did what I wanted it to do. And now that it's done that, it shows me the file structure here, and then it says it uses React best practices to separate directories for components, pages, and styles. So that's good. I have the components here, pages, and styles. I don't know if this button is actually used anywhere, but it created it. Up here it said it was just creating it to demonstrate how to store components in that folder. And then I just created CSS files for each JavaScript file. So it has component scoped CSS. So instead of having one large global CSS file, each React component has its own CSS file. And then I can have reusable UI components in this folder here. All right, so let me see. It made a ton of changes, and just by looking at this, I can tell that it probably just copied. If I refresh this page, everything looks the same. So I'm happy with these changes and don't really need to review them. I'm just going to ask it to summarize these changes. Please create a git commit message for these changes. All right, so here's the commit message, and since I didn't make any adjustments to what it generated, I'm just gonna copy and paste that and commit it as it is. Okay, so now the last thing to do is to have these playback controls centered right here. And if I were to look at the source code, the elements here for this HTML page, I can see that both of these components here are within this div class called playback controls. So I have the play button, and then I have the time display span. So now I know how to reference it in Cursor. So basically, I'll just describe it in plain language. I'm going to bring up my edit page because that's where I have these buttons. So here we have a button that we define within the edit page, but we could also just use this button that Cursor had created for us before, and then that way all buttons across our entire application are standard. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is, and I'm going to tell it, I'm going to remove all this context so that it doesn't look outside of this single document that I needed to look at. So edit page is here, add that as the context, and then I'm going to search for playback. Okay, I found the div class here, and then I'm going to say my playback controls div element has a button for pause and play and a span element for the time display. Can you center the button and the time display in the middle of the playback controls element? And I actually need to provide it with the edit page CSS, otherwise it's just going to apply the styling to within the file that I gave it context to, and since I didn't give it context of the CSS, it won't be, it basically, I'm not giving it permission to make changes there, but now if I add it, it should do it in the right place. So click send, make sure there's nothing in these changes here. Okay, and it was just a simple change. Sometimes these changes are really simple, but let's see if it worked. And yep, the content is centered. I mean, I should have known how to do that, but whatever. I used one usage of my agent in order to execute this simple thing. One last thing, please generate a git commit message. Just copy the message that it wrote, just to summarize the changes to the CSS. I can stage this and commit it. And our application is already looking a whole lot better. So I'll stop here, but if you like this content, please give it a like. In the next video, we're gonna work on adding segments here. So being able to select a region. Say if I were to click here, and then I were to drag that selection from say here to here, then I can click on a button to trim that section, and I can do that across this audio waveform, make multiple selections, and then delete them so I can start editing my video in the browser. Because ultimately, what we'll do is connect the transcription. We'll generate the transcription of this video, and then we'll connect it to this audio waveform. So as I make selections in the audio waveform, it'll highlight the words in the transcription, and vice versa. I can also highlight the words in the transcription, and it'll create the selection here in this audio waveform. And then if I hit the delete key, or if I hit the trim button that I'll have here for this audio waveform, then it'll delete that segment of the video and the corresponding phrase in the transcription. And then eventually it'll have also another button to detect silences. So for example, this little short section right here where there's no audio, it'll detect those and cut them out from the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.